Oh wait, thumbnail. Hi friends, good to see you again. Today's video is gonna be a little bit different. We're not gonna be talking about books. Instead, we're gonna be talking about writing. For those of you who don't know, which is probably all of you, I'm a writer. I love to write. I've been writing since I was 10. I actually plan on having my first book finished, fully edited and everything by the end of next year. I'm currently working on it. That is the goal, and I'm saying this now in an attempt to hold myself accountable. But I love to write. So I thought what would be fun is going through some of my old writing from when I was like 12 to 14, so about like 8 to 10 years ago. I have a lot of saved Google Docs of like old stories that I started. And I just thought it would be fun to go through them together and read them out loud and cringe a little bit at how awful of a writer I was and how insanely cringy the story ideas I had were. I've got 2 that I picked out that we're gonna read together, and have a laugh and laugh at myself because you can't take yourself too seriously. I've got my iPad here. I will put the pages on the screen while we're reading them. But I picked out 2 that I had. I just have to find them. Interesting Story is the title of the first one. It's just 1 page, but you could definitely tell that I was in my Lemony Snicket phase. Let's read it together, shall we? This is so, actually, you know what? I need wine. Okay, I have returned with juice. It's juice, kids. If I'm gonna be reading my old cringy writing, I definitely need a drink to go with it. Okay, let's begin. I'm not going to lie and say that this is a happy story filled with love and happy endings, because it's not. This is a story filled with heartbreak, loss, death, and hate. Though there seems to be a hint of love here and there is no such thing as a happy ending. The fairy tales you read as a child, where the prince saves the princess and ride off into the sunset, is a total lie. In reality, the prince most likely falls off of a cliff, the girl dies of starvation, and the stepmother wins. Disappointment, isn't it? Well, let me get something straight. The world is full of disappointment. Don't let your parents lie to you. It's just another example. So edgy. So if you still wish to read on with my story, please do. I will not stop you. Though, if that is what you wish, you will most likely shed tears, throw the book at the wall, and die inside. You will hate yourself for reading the story, and it will corrupt your mind in the deadliest of ways. And with that said, please enjoy the story you are about to read. Lydia Charleston is a poor girl, lives on her own at only 16, was kicked out of her house by a drunken mother and slapped multiple times by an abusive father. Life goes on for her though. She has a job, a nice apartment at 16. And that's about all I can say about that. No friends, no boyfriend, fails at school. It's a bad life, but she's got a nice apartment. But at least it's her own. No one controls her anymore. Not that she knows of anyway. She gets bullied constantly by kids at school. They just don't know her story. To say Lydia likes her life is an overstatement. And that is all I wrote for an interesting story. I was definitely in my Lemony Snicket phase where the whole like, this is a horrible story and you guys don't want to read this, but like read on. Yeah, I wonder if I can see how long ago I wrote this. I was 14. I was 14 when I wrote that. Oh, all right. Oh, okay. And then the second story and our last one is a bit longer, which is why I only picked 2. This is a story I wrote when I was 14. And the title is Aquamina. Can you guess what it's about? Yeah, okay, yeah. This is the outline. Setting, Atlantica, Maine. Plot. Aramina Thomas is an ignored, lonely girl. She has crappy parents who ignore her and don't care what happens to her. The only escape for her is the ocean. But one day, while she's swimming, a strange current pulls her deeper and deeper into the water. She believes she's going to drown, but then she's kissed. By what, she doesn't know. But she can make a guess that it's the gorgeous merman who she woke up beside. Suddenly, her whole life changes. She finds out she's some sort of mermaid queen-to-be. She's engaged to a gorgeous, sweet merman, and she's destined to save life as she knows it. Plus, she has these strange new powers she can't seem to control. With the help of her new friends and a hot merman, will she be able to fight her own evil ancestor? Layla? Evil ancestor? What were you thinking? Okay, Aramina, Aquamina, Thomas. Protagonist. Long brown hair and brown eyes. Short and petite with a blue tail. Crappy parents who don't care. Only child. They don't know she's missing. Bonded to Eli Woods. Closest friend is Seraphina Moon. She's the soon-to-be queen of Atlantica and is destined to save their world. Her worst enemy is her great aunt, Rosalind, who wants to steal her crown. She's sassy but shy. You get in her face, she'll get in yours. She's tough but sensitive when it comes to the people she cares about. Eli Woods. Sandy blonde hair and blue eyes, masculine with a blue tail matching Aquamina's. Never knew his family and was orphaned. Bonded to Mina, soon to be king of Atlantica. Sweet and compassionate and is very protective of Mina. He does whatever he can to save the ones he loves and would do anything for his people. He is very close to the king and queen and considers them his closest thing to parents. Wow. Okay, I'm not going to go through the rest of the cast because apparently I wrote a lot of characters, but I did have a fan cast that I added as well. So shall we go through them? Cast. Lily Collins as Aramina. Liam Hemsworth as Eli Wood. Anna Sophia Robb as Seraphina Moon. Angelina Jolie as Rosalind Mandela. Julie Andrews as Queen Lillian. And Jeff Bridges as King Nathaniel. And it's not even that these are like terribly written for being, 14, but it's how cliche these stories are for me. All right, we have prologue. Should I do voices? No, I'm really bad at voices. There she is, the man stated, his bright red tail floating in the crystal water. His eyes darted from the small girl sleeping on the bench to the woman next to him. Keep quiet, Sunin, the woman hissed in a foreign tongue. She sent a death glare to her husband, warning him to keep quiet. They both knew that if the girl awoke, they would be discovered. They couldn't let that happen yet. Slowly, the two Mers swam off into the deep blue, one right behind the other, their matching tails moving smoothly in sync. We need to watch the boy. We can't be too sure what Kalin said was true, the woman said, swimming slightly ahead of the other man. True as that may be, Sunin, I trust Kalin. I believe this boy and this girl may be the perfect match. They will do us proud. The man looked ahead, swiftly grabbing his wife's hand in his, giving it a sweet kiss. Do not ponder too much on this. It is what we have wanted for many moons. His wife gave him a small yet reassuring smile, warming him up like her smile always did. Even after all the time they had been together, every second seemed like the first. I know, but I cannot help but to think the Dark One will send his loyals before we can acquire the Chosen Ones. The woman sighed, taking in a deep breath of salt water, calming her just the slightest. They won't, Sunin. The man pulled her close to his chest, embracing the small woman in his masculine arms. Anin Su. The man gave her a small kiss on the head. Anin Su. The woman agreed, smiling just a bit more. Slowly, they moved on. What if they don't agree to our decision? What if they wish to go back? She asked. They wouldn't be able to if they wanted, which they won't. If what Kalin and Ashur said was true, they will gladly leave their own homes. It's a bold assumption. When will we bring them back to our world, Sunin? She asked, giving her husband's hand a squeeze. In due time, Sunin. In due time. And with that, the two swam off into their home, preparing for what is to come. Apparently, I was writing a whole ass language for this, which it wouldn't be the first time, but Not gonna lie, why is this one kind of better than any of the other ones I've written? Chapter 1, Aquamina by Layla M. Myers. Aramina walked down the rocky path, the familiar smell of salt water filling her nose, warming her insides like nothing else could. Oh my god, I had a love for semicolons. I remember that too. I specifically remember loving semicolons. And then I went to college and learned how to use them properly. A strange feeling, really. It made her feel alive. Always has, and she hoped it always will. The small snip of the ocean was her getaway, where no one else knew of, where she could be alone. Of course, that's how Mina liked it, alone, away from the world, her family, and even friends, if she had any. Mina was never a very sociable person, yet she was okay with that. Distractions, her mother would say. Just thinking of the foul witch made her want to gag. Her father was worse, though, attempting abuse, screaming at her, drunks, the both of them. As an only child, Mina should have been their favorite, but that was not the case. Her parents didn't want her, or anything to do with her. The only reason they kept her was so that they didn't look bad, as if the whole town thought that they were good people to begin with. Mina snorted at this thought. The water splashed in perfect harmony, causing Mina to hum. Relaxing as it was, it kept her from reality. Swimming, even. Mainly just the ocean in general was so appealing. She could almost jump in at any moment, and that's just what she did. Stripping from her top and shorts, Mina was left in her purple bikini, revealing her petite frame. Her pale stomach exposed, a cold gust of wind chilled her gut. Her light brown hair blew in the wind, her hazel green eyes filled with joy. Slowly, she walked to the water's edge, immediately plunging in. The water touched her face, relieving any worried thoughts she had of the world. For all she knew, reality was just a dream that her mind made, a messed up mind at that. Eyes open, Mina watched multicolored fish swim past her, not seeming to be bothered by her presence. It was as if the fish expected her more than her own family. Probably true. Mina spent so much time in the water that it seemed more like home to her than her actual home. A large stingray swam past her, a hint of interest in its deep blue eyes. Mina smiled, watching the beautiful scenes around her. Quickly, a gust of current hit her hard, pushing her back deeper into the water. Gasping, a gulp of salt water fell down her throat, causing her to stop breathing. She couldn't swim back up, and she began panicking. I'm going to die doing my favorite thing, she thought, mentally sighing. Mina stopped struggling, letting her body fall into the deep pits of the sea. At least she would die doing what she loved, or so she thought. Mina had closed her eyes, accepting her fate. Yet a warm item, back to business. Yet a warm item, a hand, it seemed, grabbed her arm, pulling her into its body. A warm pair of what seemed to be lips were placed atop her own. Soon, Mina took a deep breath, breathing once again. Yet, just after she seemed to finally be safe, everything went black. And I use these little tridents to break up the scenes. Mina woke up in an itchy, pebbly floor. Prying her eyes open, she looked around. The room was dark, but with just enough moonlight, she saw the walls were the same as the floor. It seemed to be a cave. Creepy. Mina's back ached, and her throat was sore, and her feet felt like they were tearing apart. Looking down, Mina saw a slight metallic tint on her legs, drawing her attention away from the silent footsteps heading her way. She pulled her legs to her chest, attempting to make herself as small as possible. Her legs felt smoother than usual, slippery even. Mina quickly looked up. A man knelt in front of her. His perfectly chiseled features drew her attention away from everything else, drawing her into his deep blue eyes. He had dark blonde hair, reminding Mina of sand. His eyes were the deep blue of the ocean, almost calming her senses. He had perfectly angular jawline and perfectly round lips. Never before had Mina seen such a beautiful man. He only seemed a few years older than her, 21 maybe. She didn't even notice that his perfect lips were moving, saying something to her. Aquamina, hello, are you all right? Can you hear me? Aquamina, the man asked, concern filling his eyes. He even had a perfect voice, smooth and soothing. Yet, she snapped out of her daydream. Aquamina, what the hell is he talking about? Mina thought, shaking her head back to reality. Who are you? Where am I? Who the heck is Aquamina? She asked, question after question filing out of her mouth. That's a weird way to phrase that. She could tell the man was holding back a chuckle because he had his lips pursed into a line and his eyes gleamed with amusement. My name's Eli. You're in a cave and you are Aquamina, he replied calmly, watching her intently for Mina's response. She was Aquamina. That didn't make any sense to her. Why the hell was she in a cave and with a beautiful man? Mina pressed a hand to her forehead and took a deep breath, attempting to calm her nerves. Why are we in a cave? She asked, looking at Eli through her lashes. And why are you calling me Aquamina? She added, biting her tongue to hold another question in. Eli took a deep breath and ran a hand through his gorgeous locks. Stop it, Mina. He could be your kidnapper, she scolded herself, sighing. We're in a cave because it was the closest place I could take you, and I'm calling you Aquamina because that is your mer name. It's her mer name. Duh. Who do you think you are? I normally film, this is off topic, I normally film after my fiance goes to boxing. And lately, it's been getting dark earlier, so my light in front of my window, which is the whole reason I film right here, is just going away. So anyway, sorry about the lighting, because I need to get a ring light. Mina looked around, finally taking in her surroundings. The cave was dark, but there was just enough light to see certain details. There seemed to be algae, seeping the walls with moisture. A sickly green color painted the walls, making Mina want to gag. She took a deep breath, and she gags a lot. Oh my god. She took a deep breath in an attempt to clear her head. She looked at Eli with curiosity in her eyes. All right. So I'm apparently a mermaid, she laughed. All right. And you are one too, I suppose. What, am I some sort of princess? She teased, obviously joking. Yet with her small gesture, Eli's face grew totally serious, scaring Mina just a little bit. Yes, you are. I'm also a merman, he emphasized the man. Also, yes, you are a princess. Well, more like soon-to-be queen. This left Mina shocked, her mouth hanging open. She closed it just as quickly, as if a fly would fly in at any moment. Mina shook her head, trying to clear the eruption of questions filling her mind. What? She asked, trying to keep her voice quiet. Eli sighed, shaking her head. Layla. I'll explain later, Senin, I promise. Oh, he called her mate. Okay. For some strange reason, Mina understood his strange language, even more backwards that he called her his love. Oh, his love. Okay. 14-year-old Layla and 22-year-old Layla have different versions of words, apparently. I'd go for mate, and she goes for my love. 14-year-old Layla hadn't read Akatar yet. A blush reached her cheeks, and she looked down to hide it. She trusted his words either way. She trusted him. It's time to go. Trust me? He stood up and held out his hand, sending her a reassuring smile. She returned it and grabbed his hand, somehow steady. A flow of calmness overflowed her, and she felt at peace. Eli smiled and led her along to the edge of the cave. Nothing but clear water under them. He gave her hand a squeeze. Close your eyes, he whispered. A shiver was sent down her back, yet she ignored it. She did what he said and squeezed her eyes shut. Next thing she knew, cold blue water surrounded her. And that is the end of chapter 1. How are we feeling about this, guys? How's 14-year-old Layla's writing doing it for you? We'll do chapter 2 as well. I didn't know if I was gonna do chapter 2, but I'm going to because it's not very long. All right, chapter 2, Aquamina. The salt water soaked itself into Mina's skin, seemingly glowing. It was almost as if the ocean had been waiting for her, calling upon her arrival. The one thing Mina did not expect was to be able to breathe. To breath. Forgot to eat, Layla. The salt water filled her lungs just as air would have. She took a deep breath and looked around. The ocean seemed clearer, and the fish weren't bothered by her presence. Bitch, they weren't earlier. The whole scene was magical. Colorful fish swam by, coral brightly colored. Eli watched her reaction shamelessly, a twinkle gleaming in his eyes. As Mina looked around, she didn't seem to notice the bright blue tail that had replaced her legs. Yet when she finally took note of its presence, nothing but interest sparked in her eyes. Running a hand over her new tail, a soft glimmer shone through the sea and danced across the silky scales. The tail was a bright sky blue. A tint of purple and silver shone once the sun hit. A small smile played on Mina's lips as she twirled around. Glad you like it, Eli spoke out, shocking Mina. She turned around and noticed the matching tail connected to Eli's waist. It seemed to be the perfect match to her own, but she didn't know whether that was a coincidence or not. She knew nothing about mer people. I do. It's beautiful, Mina spoke, looking back down at her tail, swishing it in the water softly. It's rare as well. Eli swam over to her, taking Mina's hand softly in his own. He spun her around with a small smile placed itself on his lips. Rarest blue tail in the whole ocean. He spoke softly, watching her tail with a look in his eyes that Mina didn't quite recognize. Then why is your tail the same as mine? Mina asked, wondering since the moment they arrived. The past few hours had become a blur for her, and she needed her answers. Because we were bonded. Eli spoke so softly, almost unable to be heard. Mina cocked her head to the side curiously, asking her silent question. Eli pushed his lips into a thin line and shook his head. I'll explain later, Senin. I promise. He spoke so gently, Mina couldn't help but agree. She sighed and nodded her head, pushing her questions to a safe place in the back of her mind, where she would be able to think of them later on. Fine, but get ready for a whirlwind of questions later on, she warned, only for a soft chuckle to escape Eli's lips. She sent him a small, playful glare. Something about this boy made her skin tingle and her breath hitch. The salt water seemed to be messing with her mind. Eli smiled softly at her and held out his hand, which Mina gladly accepted. The skin on her palm seemed to burn, like when the sun shines bright on a hot day. She took a deep breath and ignored the feeling, focusing on what Eli was saying. We need to leave. It'll only take us a few hours to get back to Atlantis if we leave now. Ready to meet the rest of our kind? He asked, giving her hand a soft squeeze. Mina knew just by looking at him, Eli was the most trustworthy person she would meet, which must have been the reason she nodded so confidently. Let's go. Mina swallowed the lump in her throat and Eli smiled. Quickly they swam off, hand in hand. The ocean was so much bigger and more beautiful than Mina could imagine. The fish didn't swim off when the two Murs swam away. The ocean seemed calm, relaxed. Nothing like all the times Mina had swam there. It was as if the ocean had finally accepted her presence as its own. The hours went by and Eli's hand never escaped hers, which both calmed her and excited her all the same. The whole situation was breathtaking and strange. Mina knew that a normal person would be freaking out to have grown a tail and be led to a strange ocean city by a gorgeous stranger who called them his love. But Mina must not have been a normal person. Mina didn't want to go home. She didn't want to think about her home anymore. She knew her whole life would change after this experience, and she couldn't wait. After a few hours, Mina and Eli arrived at the small clearing. The only inhabitants were some coral and small fish. Eli held Mina's hand firm, stopping their forward movement. He took a deep breath and looked to Mina, worry filling his blue eyes. Senin, Eli said, voice firm, drawing in Mina's attention. The Murs in Atlanta will recognize you. They'll try to talk to you, touch you. It'll be crazy. So please, stay by my side and don't wander, all right? Eli looked into Mina's eyes, his gaze strong. Mina took a deep breath and nodded. I promise. Eli physically relaxed and smiled, squeezing Mina's hand. Mina cocked her head to the side and thought for a moment. So I'm kind of a big deal here, huh? Eli chuckled softly. You have no idea. And that, my friends, is chapter 2 of Aquamina. And I'm cracking up a little bit. I think that was it. Yeah, no chapter 3. I remember posting this story specifically on Wattpad at the time. And I made myself a little cover. I don't know if you guys can see this. It says Aquamina by E.R. Marie. Now let me tell you a little something. I thought when I was 14 that I was gonna be a writer. Always knew that I was gonna be a writer. That was the plan. But I never ever planned on using my name for my works, especially like on Wattpad and stuff. So I thought I was going to go by L. Rose Marie. Man, 14-year-old me. I honestly, not terrible. The writing could use some work, for sure. The grammar, the punctuation, the semicolons, it could all use some work. But not as bad as it could be, given the age and the situation and all the things. Hopefully you guys had as much fun reading these as I did, because I thought that they were cringy and funny, and I had a good time. I have a lot of stories like that I started and never finished, and I got maybe like 1 or 2 chapters done. So if you guys want to hear more of my cringy writing from when I was like 14, please let me know, because I would absolutely love to do more of these videos of me reading them. And yeah, that's it, guys. That's all I wanted to do in this video, was go through some of my writing, give you a laugh, give me a laugh, have a good time. I will have another video next week. Yeah, like, subscribe, follow all the social medias, Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, TikTok, and feel free to do all the things. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks, love you, bye!